And our final fight of the night between Brian Ortega versus the Korean Zombie, Sung Jung. Very much looking forward to this one, gents. Who have you guys got?
This one I think is the one that every MMA fan out there is like chomping at the bits to see. Here's my breakdown. Yeah. I'll tell you my bet first that I think is a solid bet. So if you're a betting guy, I think the over 2.5 rounds in this fight is pretty much a lock. I don't see either one of these guys getting finished in 2 rounds. I think you see a 3rd round in this fight. With that being said, the Korean Zombie, he's kind of resurrected his career. He's had 2 after his loss to Yair Rodriguez from that elbow, which I believe he was winning that fight, if I'm not mistaken. He got caught with that elbow right at the end. He's had 2 impressive wins. He's just had an impressive win over Frankie Edgar. You touched on this a little bit earlier, James, with my only concern with Ortega, who has probably one of the sickest ground games in the UFC. My only concern is the layoff between his last fight and the fight in general, because he got beat pretty bad. So how is that going to play into him? Is he going to come back a different fighter? Is he going to come back better? Or is that going to linger in his head from that loss? Because he gets in there with Korean Zombie, he's going to be getting hit like he was in that Max Holloway fight. They're going to be banging. They're going to be trading. I keep going back and forth because I love both of these fighters. I'm going to stick with my original pick was Korean Zombie. I think he's going to do enough to get it done, but I would not be surprised if Ortega slaps a submission on him as well. My pick is going to be Korean Zombie to win, but if I'm a betting man, I think the over 2.5 is the solid pick on this one. Scott, go ahead. You're the jiu-jitsu guy.
So I actually like the over 2.5 as well. I didn't bet it. I did see a lot of other people betting it though, and I took a hard look at it today. I think it's definitely something to consider. But you touched on it with Ortega. The real question is like, what are we going to see out of him? You know, his last fight, he got hit with 290 significant strikes, and then took a 2-year layoff. Like, I really don't know. Also, during that 2-year layoff, he had ACL surgery. So like, I really don't know what to expect out of him. He does have good striking. It's very underrated. His jiu-jitsu, like you said, is just absolutely elite. Just under Henry Gracie, just absolutely elite. There's not much else to say about it besides that. His problem is that he doesn't really wrestle much. His wrestling isn't great. And he's openly talked about in interviews how he doesn't like how jiu-jitsu guys spam takedowns, talks about how it hurts their cardio, and it's just not an overall winning strategy. And that worries me when, you're going to fight guys that are better strikers than you, like Max Holloway, and not shoot many takedowns. Also, it worries me how reliant he is on a finish. He was losing to Tavares, was losing to Guida, and was 1-1 and probably losing the fight to Mayakano before hitting the finishes. And I just don't love backing guys that are so reliant on a finish. And then you look at Korean Zombie, and I think people forget how elite he is. He took that long layoff due to military service. But, I mean, the guy's 6-2. His only losses are the loss to Rodriguez, which he won 24 minutes and 59 seconds of, took an elbow to the face, and then his loss to Jose Aldo when Jose Aldo was the king, like probably the featherweight GOAT. He's got excellent striking, tons of power, 77% takedown defense too. So even if Ortega does come out to wrestle, I don't think he's going to succeed at a high rate. He's also got extremely underrated grappling. This is the guy that submitted Dustin Poirier, which is no joke. So yeah, I have to pick Korean Zombie to take it.
Yeah, again, literally just going to echo you boys in this one. I think this fight is obviously long overdue. We've wanted to see this fight for God knows how long. They've had some back and forth over the past year or so, but the main question with me is, where's Brian Ortega going to be at mentally? Because obviously, as you boys touched on, he's had the surgery. He's been off for 2 years, and he took a brutal beating against Max Holloway. So if he's mentally, fitter and stronger than ever, then maybe we'll see him sort of get the W in this one and sort of put his way back into the title picture, which is a bit unfair because I think Dana said the winner of this fight gets the title shot or something like that, which is a bit fair on the other fight. If Brian Ortega wins, it's a bit unfair on the likes of obviously he's a beat and all that. But if Korean Zombie wins, fair enough, he deserves it because, again, like you boys touched, he's been on an unprecedented streak as of late. And it was very unfortunate against Yair Rodriguez. And again, these two men, regardless of whether it's submission or knockout, they are finishers. And I'm very much looking forward to this fight. I do think this one, again, like you said, this does go past the second round, going into the third round, the championship rounds, that's where it's gonna be entertaining. I think these fighters are very much exciting in the division and certainly in their styles. It's going to be a spectacle wherever the fight goes. The Korean Zombie is a striker who specializes in sheer knockout power. But as you touched upon there, Scott, he's got a good takedown defense, so it's going to be very, very difficult to take a guy like the Korean Zombie down for Ortega, even though his jiu-jitsu is just second to none on another level. I'm very much looking forward to this one. I think the best bet for Ortega is obviously to sort of rely on the strikes and set up a submission against the Korean Zombie. But again, the takedown defense is certainly going to come up clutch for Zombie on this one. I think his technique and power will certainly pierce through the defense of Ortega. And I think he's going to catch him in the third and get the finish in the third round. So I'm going to go for a Korean Zombie via third round TKO. But it's going to be a great spectacle nonetheless for us UFC fans staying up.
We didn't even. I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but there's a little bad blood between these guys too. They had a run in. I believe it was it last year? They had a little run in at one of the UFC fights, and I can't remember the whole backstory, but I know there's bad blood in here. So this should be a banger, man.
Didn't he like slap his translator or something? Or it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, it's crazy. What was the bloke's name? Jay Park. Like he slapped him. Yeah.
Yep.
What weird. Yeah, because they were supposed to fight Christmas last year, weren't they? And then Frankie Edgar was that the one where Frankie Edgar stepped in? I think it was. Yeah, because he had surgery, and then Frankie Edgar was supposed to make his bantamweight debut, but stepped up at featherweight, which is just weird. Yeah, there's such a big backstory behind this. Yeah.
It's gonna make for fireworks, man.
Yeah, and if the Korean Zombie gets a brutal knockout, you're going to see Jay Park jump in the cage. Just put one final blow on.
If he can knock Ortega out, I mean, if that happens, man, I want to know what the odds are on him knocking him out in the third round, because that would be impressive. He can knock Ortega, because I don't think he's ever been finished, has he?
Ortega?
Holloway finished him.
Holloway. Well,
I mean,
Holloway.
But
that
he
didn't.
But he didn't finish him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he finished him. I get that, but I don't think he's ever been knocked out. Like, he hasn't.
Korean Zombie inside the distance is plus 100, so 50-50.
Oh, is it? That's. I think the odds makers are kind of thinking about what we talked about, like that layoff and him taking that beating in that fight are probably going to be the difference makers.
Yeah, it's certainly crazy for however long you take off. I mean, to come back against a guy like Korean Zombie who's on a great streak right now, it's going to be tough to come up with a win on this one. I think it's going to be a case of where he's at mentally, because if he's not quite there and he's still got that Max Holloway loss at the back of his mind going into the fight, then it's going to be a tough night at the office for Brian Ortega.
For sure.